Good evening, and welcome to Devlin's Nightmare Theater and the BloodyBlu film oubliette. Tonight's film covers a subject that is all too real to our world. After seeing the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, people have dreaded the day that nuclear weapons be used again. After World War II, the U.S. and the Soviet Union entered into a Cold War that lasted until 1991. Tension escalated between the two countries during the 1980s, and a physical war seemed imminent. The world was on edge with the expectation of a nuclear doomsday. During this time, the U.S. released a cautionary film that was made for TV. The release of the day after, in 1983, showed a possible scenario of how a small town would suffer in the event of a nuclear attack. The BBC in the UK released a similar film a year later with a less restrictive portrayal of events. As frightening as The Day After was, the BBC managed to bring a whole other level of realism. The film eventually made its way to the US and aired on HBO. It has yet to have a physical release in the US until this Blu-ray release from Severin Films. The closest you ever want to come to a nuclear war is Threads. This limited edition version of Threads comes with a 3D lenticular slipcover. Threads was released in 1984 and was directed by Mick Jackson. It stars Reese Densdale, David Brierly, and Karen Meager. Extras include a commentary track and interviews with actress Karen Meager, director of photography Andrew Dunn, production designer Christopher Robillard, and film writer Stephen Thrower. Now that we've seen the package, let's take a look at the film. Threads is presented almost like a documentary. It takes place in the English town of Sheffield. Typewriter letters clap across the screen as locations change, and Paul Vaughn narrates in between scenes. Several characters are shown going about their lives in this town, while conflict starts to erupt all around them. Karen Meager plays the main character Ruth, who is pregnant, planning to marry her boyfriend, and totally unaware of the global instability. Her boyfriend catches a news broadcast at the local pub, detailing a conflict between the U.S., Iran, and the Soviet Union. Government officials take cover, hoping to maintain order in case of an attack. People don't expect anything to happen, but they take precautions just in case. When they least expect it, the sirens sound off, and it takes just a second to register it. Once people realize what's happening, they scatter in a panic. There's nowhere to run, but it's the only choice they have. Those that are indoors try to shield themselves with furniture. The mushroom cloud goes up as the blast hits the town, destroying everything in its path. It's an incredibly tense and effective scene that will linger in your memory. The bomb was awful, but the aftermath is even worse. Survivors are met with charred, smoking bodies in the street, and infrastructure is completely crumbled. Those who are responsible for rationing food and restoring civilization are met with violence by the mad and starving. Fallout clouds the sky and brings a nuclear winter. The unfortunate living are struck with radiation sickness, and their food and water are contaminated. Unlike The Day After, Threads looks several years into the aftermath to see how the world would look a generation later. Although the production quality is low, it manages to maintain a dark realism. There is no levity here. This is a soul-crushing film that offers no joy, happiness, or hope. Definitely not recommended for those with weak sensibilities. Karen Meager sits down for a 9-minute interview and talks about the political climate of the 80s. She says she attended several marches and protests for nuclear combat. When she went to audition, she told the director that the content was very near her heart, and she would accept any role in the film. She also praises writer Barry Hines for his ability to write ordinary people in extraordinary times. Director of photography Andrew Dunn has an 8-minute interview where he reflects on working with director Mick Jackson. He also talks about conditions on set and the uncomfortable weather they had to shoot in. Christopher Robillard has a 9-minute interview discussing growing up during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He talks about his experiences with the director, who he says was very well organized. He says they had access to 2 different filming locations. They dressed up derelict houses, and when they came back, they found that all the doors and furnishings were gone. Turns out this was an area where people went to take the things they needed, since it was abandoned. The charred corpses that were staged for a shot were discovered by an unsuspecting passerby, and it had to be explained to them that it was just for a movie. Stephen Thrower has a lengthy segment that lasts around 30 minutes. He talks about how close we came to nuclear war back then. The Queen of England and several politicians had prepared speeches in the event of a nuclear attack. He talks about how the BBC felt it needed to prepare its audience for the release of Thread. They initially decided to release it on BBC Two, which had less viewers, but eventually released it on BBC One a year later. Thrower also covers the cultural impact of the film and its eventual arrival in the US. Towards the end of the interview, he tries to draw a parallel between Threads and the current political climate. There are a reasonable amount of extras, but it seemed like there was room for more. The movie itself is phenomenal for a made-for-TV political film. It offers an incredibly dark and bleak vision of a possible future. It never focuses on any character long enough for the audience to connect to, though. But that is forgivable considering the content and style of the film. All things considered, I'm giving this release a 7.5 out of 10. Make sure to subscribe to the BloodyBlu YouTube channel and click that bell to receive new video notifications. Also check out the BloodyBlu Facebook group to interact with our horror community and share your collection. And until next time, farewell. Stay bloody.